how to invest in property with little money or no money, how to create no money down deals, and how to leverage other people's money to buy real estate. A couple of years ago, I really wanted to start investing in property. I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and started to dream about owning a portfolio of real estate that will give me passive cash flow, that will give me that financial security. And I really wanted to have multiple properties on my own. In the beginning, I met the issue of not having enough capital, which stops a lot of people from investing in property. You don't have enough money to invest in property, so then you don't do it. But I didn't stop there and I didn't give up. I started to search education around real estate, how to invest, how to be more creative, what are the different ways to basically invest in property. I attended different courses, both in Sweden and in Great Britain. Me personally, I live in Norway, is where I live and where I invest my money. And in one of those courses in England, I learned something very, very valuable that I'm going to share with you today in this video. Using that knowledge, I was able to secure 6 deals the last 18 months and build a portfolio worth over 20 million crowns, which is about 1.8 million US dollar. And in properties, that's not like crazy numbers, but assuming that I did it part-time and I started with basically no capital, I think it's worth documenting and sharing. And I create this video for fun and also for documentation purposes for my older self. But if you find it useful and maybe get inspired, then that's great. I will share all my deals transparently. I will not hide anything and try to teach you what I learned the last 18 months or more, roughly 2 years now. A little disclaimer though, before we begin, some of these methods that we're going to be discussing require tons of trust with your partners, as well as you doing your numbers 3 times, like checking everything that you can actually pay some of those loans that we're going to be taking during those discussing those deals. And there are real life consequences if you fail to do so. You can wreck yourself financially or other people financially, which is probably the worst. So make sure that you know exactly what you're doing and that you are really well educated about it. This video is just to document what I did, what worked for me, and hopefully maybe inspire somebody to use some of these methods. Now that we have that little disclaimer out of the way, first I'm going to describe all of my deals that I did the last 18 months to describe exactly how I leverage other people's money and credit line and so forth, creating a win-win scenarios where those people are very happy to make a deal like that. After we describe all of the deals, I'm going to go with you through a 7-element framework that I'll be using to make those deals happen and create those win-win scenarios. And what I really want to convey in this video, and hopefully I'll be able to, is 2 things. First of all, you don't actually need your own capital to invest in property, although it is the best. But if you're somehow strapped for cash and it doesn't look like you're going to get any capital soon, then I want you to remember that it is possible to invest in property and create deals. Even if you personally don't have capital, you can leverage other things that we're going to discuss in this video. And second thing, the most important is creativity. Using your brain to structure a deal and win-win scenarios for other people that you can partner up with. It would be stupid for them to say no. All right, off to the first deal. First deal is very simple. We are beginning with something very easy to understand. In the beginning, I didn't really have that much capital to invest in property, but I did have a friend that had a good credit line. He had a good job. And in Norway, in Oslo, where I live, properties are quite expensive. So it's difficult to buy on your own, like your first property, because simply you're just not going to be able to afford it. Oftentimes you need to partner up with somebody else, maybe your friend or let's say girlfriend, or you need to use maybe your parents as like a collateral security kind of thing in front of the bank. So to create the first deal, I did it together with my friend. He had some savings and he had a good paid job as well as good credit line. Me, on the other hand, I had the drive. I was able to find a good deal, and I told him also that I'm going to renovate the whole property, so build a new kitchen, renovate the walls and so forth. Honestly, I didn't really know how to do it, but I just used Google, YouTube videos, and help from some of my friends that knew a little bit more about renovations to make it happen. And that deal is very simple. We're starting, like I said, very lightly. We shared this 50-50. He provides the financing and the credit line. I also took a credit as well on the property. We bought the property, I renovated it, and then we sold it with profit. We basically doubled our initial capital or the initial deposit. Fairly simple deal, and it's the easiest probably way to start with real estate if you don't have money and even don't have a credit line. And from here, everything gets a little bit more fun. Things are starting to accelerate. And deal number 2 is what we call a no money down deal. No money down deal means that once you're finished setting up the deal, there's no money of your own left in that property. So you acquired the property, you maybe used some deposit and some financing to get it, but you were able to retract that money quite fast, and you still own the property and it works for you, but there's no money down of your own over there. So let's discuss now how I did that. Basically, also an apartment deal, also in the city center of Oslo. This time I used other friend and her capacity to also take a loan. It's a very good friend of mine, and she doesn't live in Norway. She lives in Spain, but she earns her salary in a Norwegian company. That means that makes her eligible to take a loan in Norwegian bank to acquire property in Norway. And I needed her to take a loan together with me, and I gave her an offer of 15% profit from the sale of that apartment in the future if she agrees to sign the loan. Although officially we will be both responsible for paying for that loan, for that property, but in reality it was only me always covering up for all of the costs. I did use the money from the previous deal, from the first deal with my friend, and also loaned a little bit of money from my brother, from family, to have enough money to get the deposit, about $70,000 if I remember correctly. And with her, I gave her 15% of profit of that apartment when we're gonna be selling. She didn't have to put any deposit, she didn't have to pay for anything, and never will. She only had to sign the document that she agrees to take up the loan together with me. Obviously that requires a lot of trust, but we have that, so I was able to secure second deal and 85% ownership of that. So immediately after we acquired the property, I started to renovate it. I changed the colors on the walls, I changed the whole image of the apartment, I furnished it very cheaply. In Norway there's a website where you can get a lot of stuff for free, like a lot of furniture, people give it away for it not to be thrown away, so you can basically collect it very cheaply. I furnished the whole apartment for 40 bucks, so about 400 crowns, which was crazy. And also I used very little money to renovate the apartment. Like I said, I painted the walls, and I also built a very simple wall with doors in the living room. The living room was very big. I was able to build a wall, build a new bedroom, and rent it out to my friend, creating 3 bedrooms. Next thing what I did is I called 4 agents to come to my property and give me evaluation of that property. I picked up the highest evaluation and I sent that to bank asking to refinance now the property that has increased in value. Now, if you don't know what refinancing means, let me explain it very shortly. When you're buying a property, example over here is the apartment, you need some deposit money and then you get the rest money that you need from a bank, right? You take a loan. So let's say 15% of the deposit, 85% of it is the loan from the bank to pay for the property. Now, if you have increased the value of the property quite substantially, the difference between the old loan and the new loan, the old 85% of the older value of the property and the 85% of the new value of the property, the difference between those two loans ends up being sent to your private account. And in that way, I was able to get my money exactly back that I used as a deposit to acquire that property. So we used 70K almost to get the property, and I was able to refinance and get my money back. So I paid back my brother and I had my cash back, creating a no money down deal. So from now on, every month this property is being rented or just exists and grows in value. All of that, in a way, in my eyes at least, it's basically like free money. But this is what I call no money down deal, which is wonderful. And since then, the property was rented and it just works like a clockwork. No issues, no problems. So perfect deal, basically. From here, we go to a deal number 3. And over here, I want to also present something else. Different type of deal where you don't necessarily own the property, but you still get paid quite a bit. This is what we call a rent-to-rent deal. I started going to networking events, I started having friends that are investing in property, and I met this dude by one of my friends as well. He had this issue with one of his properties. It was like a big, luxurious apartment in the middle of the city that he struggled to rent out as an office. Basically, he didn't really have time to manage it, but the property was costing some money and was standing empty. And what I did is I suggested that I can take over the property, like manage it for him, and cover his costs in the meantime and maybe make some extra profit for him if he allows me to run an Airbnb operation over there. The apartment needed some love before we did that, so we furnished it with some new furniture, again using that website very cheaply. I think I used maybe $3,000, about 30,000 Norwegian crowns to make it happen, but that was paid straight away from the first month of rental, easy. Cleaned up the whole place, took up beautiful pictures and posted on Airbnb. That deal ended up, instead of being 1 or 2 months, We end up doing that for I think 40, maybe 15 months altogether. And beautiful thing about that deal was that I agreed with my friend that I'm going to cover the bills for that apartment, which was about $3,000 or roughly speaking 30,000 Norwegian crowns a month. And then everything above that, after costs of cleaning lady, we had 2 cleaning ladies and 1 service guy that comes to like repair if things are broken. But after those costs, everything above would we share then 50-50. That ended up being quite profitable throughout the year. Not all months were on plus, to be honest. Some months were actually minus, or not minus, but didn't make that much money. So it went to zero, so covered his cost. And then I didn't make that much money during those months. But overall, all 50 months allowed me to basically live plainly off of that and have pretty nice, decent cash flow. And even cooler thing is that I automated it quite heavily. So I had the cleaning lady coming in and out and the service guy. Everything worked very well and was well organized, meaning that I almost didn't use any time on that, and yet it was generating quite substantial cash flow every single month. So it was a great deal as well. And over here, I want to share that you can leverage your networking skills, the assets that maybe some of the people that you know have, and create those opportunity for them to not have the hustle of management of some problematic maybe property, and create a deal that they're happy with, and yet you yourself can make a nice profit out of that. Now, deal number 4, which was happening simultaneously, was with yet another person. And me being a personal trainer for the past, I don't know, maybe 12 years, I met a lot of people. I was working on a gym where there was a lot of businessmen, entrepreneurs, interesting people, high earners, and so forth. And I think being a personal trainer is quite simply one of the best if you have like a 9 to 5, and you're finding like a good club, where fitness club, like there's a lot of interesting, influential, maybe rich people. It is the best job you can get. Why? Because you're basically getting paid to becoming friends and building a network with awesome people. This is how I perceive it. And one of those clients that became also a long-term friend was a woman, a doctor, that really wanted to invest her money in property. And she knew that, but she didn't have time, she didn't have knowledge. She couldn't be basically bothered with the whole process because it seemed to be for her very difficult and complicated. So she didn't really want any part of that, but she did want to own the properties. So I came up with a deal. And that deal was that we're going to be using her assets and her finances to finance property deals. We're going to co-own all of those deals 50-50, but I'm going to be the one that's going to be finding those deals, that's going to be managing those deals, renovating them, gathering the personnel needed to manage those and make things happen. And I'm going to be doing all of the hard work and heavy lifting. And the first deal we struck together was taking a home equity line of credit. So basically you're taking a credit on the private person, and the collateral for the bank is their own property, right? So they own a property, maybe that there's not that much loan anymore. She lived in a big house that was paid off the last 15-20 years or so. There wasn't that much loan on it. There was tons of value, and you can use that as a security to get a private home equity loan on that person. So get straight up like a line of credit that you can use on whatever you want. And so we did. We took 3.5 million Norwegian crowns of line of credit, which is roughly speaking like 330, I think, thousand US dollar. And we put that into new established limited company that we co-owned 50-50. So she sent private money into the company. Now that money became a capital inside of that company. With that capital, we were able to secure a house outside of Oslo. Oslo is quite expensive when it comes to houses. We weren't able to finance a house straight in the middle of Oslo. So we had to go out of Oslo. And there's another city about 1 hour away that is still up and coming, but it's not as, as big, as popular, as hot, but it's still kind of hot. I found a property, a little bit run down house with 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, pretty decent in terms of the size and the potential for making money from rental. So we decided, let's go for it. That property needed some love. I put a little bit of hours myself, hired also one of my friends to help me out, and then a bunch of guys to help change the roof as well, to just upgrade the property. So we financed the whole thing through the home equity loan, send it to company, and then straight up outright buy the whole property without asking bank for a loan, which would be problematic for a new established limited company that has no history of taking any credit or no history whatsoever. So over here, I leveraged the person's capability of having this home equity line, and we used the security of their own private house to get cash again and send to the company. Now, next deal, which is the deal number 5, is we straight away was able to buy yet another apartment, this time in city center in Oslo, big apartment, expensive apartment that we then rented out for students. That was 5-bedroom apartment in the middle of the city, very cash flow friendly, let's say. So the return on that investment in terms of cash flow was pretty decent. And what we did is we used now the house inside of that company, and we used that as a collateral in front of the bank as a security that we presented. Hey, here is this house, right? We own it 100%. There's no loan on it. It has a great cash flow because we rent it out. By the way, we rented out first as a Airbnb property and made shit ton of money throughout the summer, and then rented long term for a company that has like a physical labor workers. That was like a long-term contract. So we get a very nice contract, and then on the deal number 5, we use that argument that we own this property 100% and great cash flow coming to secure another loan to buy the big apartment in the city. Now, during receiving the keys for the latest deal, I was talking to the agent that sold us the property, and I asked him, do you have any deals that, again, over here, networking skills, if he has any new apartment coming up that would be worth, to check out, something similar that the big apartment offered. He did say, yes, we have something coming up, and I can show it to you before it's gonna show up on the market where everybody can see it. And we went there, and we found a very nice apartment also in the middle of the city that we also rented to students. Now, how did we finance this one? Was a little bit tricky because now we are almost running out of the credit that we can take on my friend's name. But we found out that we still had some security left in the house that she was owning. We took what we call a high interest short-term loan to acquire the property, and we financed it 100%. That is very risky. That is very expensive and risky if you're not able to pay it back. So with those kind of deals, you need to be really careful, and you need to know exactly what you're doing. What you can do is there are normal institutions, like let's say bank, that will give you like a typical loan to acquire property, but there are also other institutions that will give you a bit more risky kind of like loans or short-term loans that are very expensive, but they have, let's say, a little bit less requirement for you. They're willing to give you a shot in a way. Now, I knew that we were able to renovate the property, to rent it out very nicely again, and to increase the value. Again, ask the agents to come, give the high evaluation, and I think you're starting to get what I'm going with that. Again, leverage that increased value, then find another bank that could give us a normal loan instead of the high interest loan. And so we did. So yeah, this is all of the deals. I hope I didn't get in too much detail. In the span of maybe 18 months, we acquired quite a bit of property. What I want to convey in this video is something about how to create those deals. And there's a framework that I like to use. Most common issue when it comes to real estate for people is like, I don't have money to buy real estate, right? I don't have enough capital to acquire new properties. I want you to take away something that I used in all of those deals, which is understanding that the capital is only one element in creating a real estate deal. There's at least like 7, maybe more, different elements to creating a deal. First of all, the deal itself. So your ability to find a good property, to find the property at the right location at the right price, and also using your creativity to maybe creating a different way of repurposing that property, or maybe reusing it in a different way. So your ability to just find a good property, a good deal, that in itself is already worth trading with somebody. Their ability to finance it with your ability to find that deal, you already can create a deal just based on that. But on top of that, there's other elements. Second, obviously you need capital in itself, but we already established you don't really need it yourself. You can find other people, create deals together with them. Another thing is your ability to renovate. Norway, where I live, is very expensive when it comes to renovations. I decided to do most of the renovations myself or using help of my friends. During negotiations with your potential partner, you can also say that, yeah, you will be covering that. No additional costs around the deal. When it comes to renovating, which can be actually quite substantial. Another element worth discussing is project management in itself. A lot of people don't really have time, energy, and headspace to deal with creating the deal, finding the deal, buying that on auction. So for example, in Norway, it happens on auction. You have to go on auction and fight with other people to get the property. Yeah, management of the personnel that's going to be there. It's quite a bit of work, and not everybody wants to do it, and you can again leverage that when you're negotiating with them a deal. Another thing that I like to differentiate, that I like to use when selling somebody on the idea of working together, is the follow-through capacity. So the grit that you have, the ability to make decisions and make things happen, not give up when things get difficult, having like a strong nerve, not like a soft stomach. And some people really want to invest in property, but they're quite afraid and not able to make quick decisions. So again, over here, you can use that as a leverage when negotiating. If you present yourself as a confident decision maker that makes things happen, like people like that, people like to be led and like to be helped a little bit when it comes to investing. And obviously it's based a lot on knowledge. If you don't have knowledge about real estate, it's a little bit difficult to be so confident. But there's tons of resources where you can learn about real estate. I would recommend to go to some of the courses because it is worth it. You just need to find the right person, and then it will help you to provide that, to have that confidence. Yeah, another element is just dealing with financial institution or financial advisors and getting those finances in place. This ability also is very important in real estate. Sometimes you can find very creative ways to finance property, and sometimes you're not really using obvious ways, the typical deposit and rest paid by the bank kind of way. The knowledge around how to finance property is also something you can leverage as well. And lastly, you have also the property management. So if you have short-term rentals, let's say Airbnbs or long-term rentals, somebody also has to manage those people. Somebody has to find the right tenants, have the right contract in place, and so forth. So you also can negotiate with the potential partner that you will be the one responsible for that as well. Main takeaway of this video, basically, apart from just having a little bit of fun of documenting what I did and creating a YouTube video, is you don't really need capital to invest in property. If you're broke on cash, you can always use your creativity, your networking, and your knowledge. Obviously, knowledge, the best one is to buy it, to be honest, to cut the time of you acquiring it from internet or books. The cheapest way, actually, when it comes to exchange for your time as well, is to just buy a good education around property. You can find whoever you think is valuable, get the education that will arm you with the knowledge and will allow you to be very creative around creating deals. And then you don't really need that much capital. You just need, because capital is all over you. Like, people around you have tons of cash. Some people don't even know they're sitting on a little gold mine in the form of their own properties. So yeah, you can learn to leverage that. Now, just to sum it up, the benefits of making deals the way I structure them is obviously, without capital, you can leverage other people's assets and their own money to acquire quite a bit of real estate in quite a short time. And benefits is also that this portfolio, for example, that I have, in approximately 7-8 years will be doubling in value, and I'll be cashing out quite a bit of money without really any further labor around it, because it's fairly automated. It's still some management. It's not like it's 100% passive cash flow, that dream of like not doing anything and the cash flow just comes your way. It's not really something realistic, to be honest. Although in 2 cases, I have 2 of those properties that I just set it up and they just work beautifully and paid me quite a bit of money so far. So I guess in some cases it's possible, but I wouldn't expect that, and I wouldn't require that from those deals. Anyway, now the downsides of making those deals, that they are risky. They are risky. If you're not able to pay back those loans, you can wreck yourself financially, and even worse, in my opinion, is to wreck somebody else that trusted you financially. So you really need to have trust in your skills, in yourself. You need to have a great relationship with those people, and you really need to triple check all your numbers, because the responsibility in the end lays on you. If you make somebody lose tons of money or put them in a very difficult financial situation, it's not something you want to live with. So you really need to triple check everything always. The skills worth cultivating. Networking is getting your knowledge about real estate, about financing the properties, and becoming an expert in the local area when it comes to deals. Every week you can do a research on the different properties and try to find deals, try to structure them, go on networking events, talk to your family, talk to your friends, and start creating those deals, because the biggest money in real estate comes from owning those property over a very long period of time. So the earlier you begin, the quicker the big money comes. So with that, we're going to finish up this video. I hope you found it interesting. If you're still watching, thank you for your time. I hope you found it useful, maybe inspiring, maybe entertaining, hopefully. Click a like, click a subscribe if you would like some more value in the upcoming videos, and I see you on the next one. Ciao, ciao.